Hi, my name is Ramna and my personal blog is .netiq.com. You can visit my blog for more WCF videos and .NET videos. In this screencast, I'm covering the WCF REST Based JsonP services. What is the JSON and JsonP? Basically, JSON is a format and JsonP is not a format. Remember, it's not a format. JsonP is JSON with padding. Basically, it's a pattern or solution for the cross-domain issue. Then what is the cross-domain issue? If your web page, here see this picture, we have a server 1 and server 2 and some, if you see the web page is hosted in a server 1 and your REST based service is hosted in a server 2. These two are a separate servers and these two have a different domains. So the web page from server 1 is requesting the server 2 REST based services through jQuery. When the server 2 sends a response in a JSON format, server 1 will reject because server 1 domain policies will restrict the data from another domain. So the policies have some restrictions and it is not allowing the data from other domain. Then there is an exception. The exception is if you send the data between the script tags, then your server 1 will allow the data. Server 1 domain policies will allow the data. So we are taking the advantage of that exception and making that as a solution. If you see the next picture, in this picture, if the server 2 can send the data with between the script tags, see here the response. The script tag open and Ramna, Kumar and script tag close. If server 2 can send the data between the script tags, then server 1 will take the data. It will receive the data. Server 1 domain policies will allow the data. But problem here is if the server 1 jQuery or JavaScript has to read the data between whatever there in between the script tags, it needs some variable. If it assigns to a variable and it can read the data based on the variable and it can process the data. If server can to send the data wrapped with a variable and between the script tags, then server 1 will receive the data and it can process the data. For that, if server 1 send a variable at the time of the request and server 2 will use that variable at the time of the response and it will wrap the response with that variable and sends between the script tag, then server 1 will take it and process the data. If you see the third picture, here is a script and there is a callback and bracket opens and the JSON response is there and closing bracket and after that closing script. That means that if server the callback is a variable. If server 1 can send a variable, the callback variable to server 2 will use the callback variable at the time of sending the response. It wraps that response with the callback variable and it puts the response in script tag and send to the server 1. Then server 1 will receives the data and it will process the data. That is the ultimate solution. Putting your JSON with between the callback variable and send wrapped with it's putting in between the script tags. It's going to take care by your JsonP solution. So if your service is extended with the JsonP implementation, your service is going to JsonP is going to take care of automatically sending the data with that with the required format. I'm going to show how we implement the JsonP services in .NET 3.5. But remember, in 3.5 we don't have a direct solution, but coming to 4.0 we have a direct solution. In 4.0 just it's a simple web.config configuration and you need to configure few parameters and few settings there. But in coming to 3.5 we don't have a direct solution, so you need to download some custom binding and custom binding extensions from the Microsoft. So I will show you how we implement in 3.5. In my future screencast I can cover how we can implement in 4.0. Yeah, I already have the path, website path where we have the source code and few things already I covered in my notepad. I'm using that. If you go to the site, oh, it's already open on the same site. Even if you type the JsonP with the padding Ajax in the .NET 3.5, you can get the same link. go to this page and click the download sample. I already downloaded in my system and installed it. Basically this is showing the .exe, but it's a zip file, and if you double click on, it's going to extract all the files in your local C drive. I will show you where it is going to extract. Okay, sorry, this is the folder actually. See, samples, WCF WF card space, but we need only few files which is supports the Ajax JsonP, because when you are doing the calls through jQuery internally use the Ajax XML HTTP request, but so we need a solution for the Ajax calls, jQuery Ajax calls. Extendability, go to the Ajax, go to the JsonP, go to the C#, because we are showing this sample in C#. Yeah, if you see here, we have some extended classes like JsonP behavior, JsonP binding element, JsonP binding extension, JsonP encoder factory. These are the 4 class files you need to include in your code solution, project solution. Because we are using a custom binding to support the JsonP, and we have some custom encoding to support the JsonP. I will show you how we do. Again, I'm taking the same sample, employee service. We have an employee service SOAP based implementation. We have employee service JSON, like REST based JSON format solution. If you want to see how we created, please go visit my previous screencast. And also remember, JsonP won't support the post calls. That means if you want to post data through HTTP post, it won't support. But in our previous service contract, we have a method called add employee. It is taking the employee as an input. It is a post call. But since it's a JsonP, it is not supporting. But means you can implement as a JsonP, but at the runtime of, if you specify as a post, it throws the error. Okay, that's why I added one more method called add employee get. Here I am passing the employee ID, name, address as input parameters. I will specify the implementation. I will specify this method as a get, and I will specify all this parameter in query string. I will show you how you implement it. First thing, you need to add this all 4 classes to your solution, and make sure you build your solution. I'm just doing the rebuild again. I already did several times. Go to your implementation class, service implementation class. This is the where iEmployee is implemented. So to make your this employee, earlier it is a JSON service, REST based JSON format service. I'm just converting the service as a JsonP. So you need to add the namespace Microsoft.ajax.samples. This is nothing but the implementation of the custom, like these 4 classes. These 4 classes have the namespace, same namespace. I'm using this namespace. And one more key thing is, you need to, whatever the operations, if you want to make a JsonP supportive, all those operations need to be decorated with the attribute called JsonP behavior and the callbacks. Remember, I mentioned a callback variable. It has to pass by the client, whoever requesting the service. Here I am giving the variable name also as a callback. You can give whatever the name, XYZ or anything you can give. That name has to share to the client, whoever calling this operation, okay, who are consuming these services, so that they can pass that variable value the variable value to this variable name callback. So they need to pass a variable name callback and some value they have to assign and request this service. So what are the services I have in this implementation, like what are the operations is implemented in this service. All our operations are decorated with JsonP behavior, and I gave the same variable name callback. And here you see this, here also it's decorated with the JsonP behavior, and it's also JsonP behavior. Means if you want to make your operation as a JsonP support, you need to decorate with the JsonP behavior. These are the small few changes you need to do at the code side, and again the web.config side you need to do a few more changes. This is my service configuration. See here, this is the endpoint URL, and everything is remains same what we mentioned in our REST based service, like behavior configuration, and the contract is iEmployee. And only thing is, if you want to plain JSON REST based JSON format service, you need to be mentioning your binding as web HTTP binding. but since it is a JsonP, it's a custom implementation, so you need to specify it's a custom binding, and where exactly your custom implementation is, you need to specify the name. JsonP binding is implemented in JsonP element class. See here, JsonP element class. So means we have a custom implementation. So we are specifying that the implemented class name here, JsonP binding configuration, and the contract is remain iEmployee. Come to the binding configuration, especially binding configuration, JsonP binding. We mentioned the binding configuration name as JsonP binding, and here there is a custom encoding. We have a custom encoding to support that, like the format which is needed for cross-domain issue, the JsonP message encoding. So when you are giving custom elements in this web.config, you need to specify where the implementation is included in the DLL. You need to specify the DLL name and everything. So that's what in this extension section I specified this. The JsonP message encoding is implemented, means the type, what the type it has to map, JsonP binding extension, and the implementation is existed in employee service.web. Because we added these 4 classes to employee service.web, it is generating the if you see here, it is generating the employee service.web.dll. That's why I mentioned that employee service.web, the assembly name. The assembly name is going to employee service.web. Whatever the assembly name you mentioned in configuration, you need to specify here, employee service.web. So make sure you need to configure your DLL and the type which is going to mapped with the JsonP encoding, JsonP message encoding. These are the minimum, these are the changes you need to take care to make your service as JsonP supportive. Okay, I will execute this service through again the fiddler. I will show you how we can execute, means we call this service from a jQuery in my next screencast. Yeah, that fiddler is the one of the best tool, means you can easily test your REST based services or any services. So it's really useful tool. You can download the fiddler from online, and I just run the service. Here I have the already URLs. Remember earlier in my previous screencast, add employee is a post HTTP post method, but since it's a JsonP won't support the post methods. So I have a new method, add employee get, and I'm passing all the parameters as a query string, and then you see here I specified as a get, and I need to specify the format of the content type as a JSON, and I'm executing this method. So I got 200 means is successful, the response is successful, and if you want, we can get the response. Like I have one more method called get employee by name. If I give this, see I'm passing the name as Ramna P, and because I added the Ramna P, so this is again a get operation. If you see, I got a response back. See, whatever the added test address, employee ID 124 and Ramna P, you can do the same, the delete operation. Basically it supports the JsonP. If I show it in a HTML with the jQuery, you can easily understand that, but I will show you with how we can test with the jQuery in my next screencast. Thank you.